get offended when somebody says something about our artwork. I've grown to the point where I can kind of take the good with the bad.
Yeah.
Even though I still don't want nobody telling me how to do it.
Oh yeah.
But what is it can we focus on? What can we do when we're that kind of introvert, hold on to the artwork too tight, and that we should, some of the steps and things that we should do to get out there and talk to other artists? And we'll start with Shaniqua and go with Ann and then come to
I can speak to that because that's who I was before. I went back to school. So I was still a working professional artist before I even went to school. How I didn't tell my whole story about how I even got to the business plan was that I got tired of my friends coming to my house and looking at all the art on my walls and saying, "This is such nice work on your walls. Why don't you show it to anybody?" It was almost like taking off my arm to sell it to somebody. It's like, it's like, but I love it. I just had it. Why are you doing this to me? What do you mean? You know, and then, you know, you, right. Why I can't see my child away? You know, I said, right, I'll draw on this napkin and you can have this napkin. So, you know, it's, I mean, but you laughing because it's real, right? Yeah, because I had to get to a place where I didn't have such a personal, loving, childlike relationship with my work. I had to get to that space. And I got to that space because I got tired of my friends and my family talking about my work just being on my walls and me not showing it to anybody and nobody ever getting to see it. You know, it's like I'm into we're here for a purpose type life, that type thing. So if I'm here for a purpose and all of my stuff is on my walls, I'm not fulfilling my purpose. I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. I can't be the 9-to-5 chick. I don't want to do that for the rest of my life. And so if this means me fulfilling my purpose, I have to make some decisions. So a way for me to come out of being an introvert is I had to step outside of my comfort zone. And I think that's the biggest thing more than ever is you stepping outside of your comfort zone. I talked about I'm a recluse by nature. I don't like talking to people. I'm funny. Y'all see I'm funny. But I'm funny with but I'm funny with my family. I'm funny with people I know. I'm funny with the people I love. I'm a clown amongst my family and friends, but to be around and go out amongst people, and I kind of did what she was talking about. I started going to shows by myself. That made all the difference. And so after I went to maybe 10 or 15 shows by myself, I actually started talking to people. Yeah. So, you know, it's just the baby steps that you take in order to get yourself outside of what you're used to. So you can't grow. You're not going to develop if you don't get yourself outside of what you're used to doing. You don't have to go to school. That's not a requirement. I said that was my choice. That's something I felt like I need. I'm like, I'm going to grow beyond this in some way. And so my choice was school. That's not always the choice that everybody has to make. Most artists don't take those steps to go to school, especially if that's something that you're naturally proficient at doing. If that's your natural capability. So what he was talking about in going outside of the fact that you're an introvert, again, you just get outside of your comfort zone. You go outside of yourself and you grow. You're growing every day, or at least I hope you are. You can't be stagnant. We don't go from being a baby to, you know, being old ladies on a panel in one day, you know.
So it's okay to go to 15 art shows and not say nothing. Because on 16, that's when you're going to speak.
Well,
up.
that's what I mean. I was like, all right, I'm 16. All right, now 20. I'm doing it. So, you know, it's what's good for you. What's good for you. So what I did, the steps that I took, may not be the steps that you take, but what takes you outside of your comfort zone? What steps are you going to? What are you willing to risk? Is it worth it? So you have to be. I mean, being an artist, you definitely a risk taker. So they talk about when you're being an entrepreneur, you have to be a risk taker, right? And so being an artist, you know, for the most part, I don't know what y'all got, but for me, with my family, when I decided to be an artist, you know, I come from a background of educators. Most of my family are educators, or of some other business profession that is not art. When I graduated from school, my godparents gave me a gift certificate to Kroger, and they said they don't want any starving artists. That was like the biggest slap in the face for me. That was like the biggest slap in the face for me, because that said, I'm not gonna make it. I'm not gonna make it, then I'm gonna have to eat Kroger gift certificates, and I'm gonna have to be on food stamps for the rest of my life because I'm gonna always have to be a starving artist until I met people who were not starving artists. And the same godparents who gave me that gift certificate to go to Kroger, guess who's my biggest collector?
That's right.
You know what I mean? So the tables can turn.
Oh,
You know, they're like, oh, it might be something to this. Let me give you a couple of dollars. You know what I mean? Let me invest in this thing. It may not be that bad. So, you know, I think it's all in what you make it. If you believe wholeheartedly in yourself, I think it's all in what you make it. I've worked several positions, but most of my positions have always been in a field of creativity. So just a couple of things. I worked as a visual merchandiser. I did volunteer work I was an AmeriCorps member for a very long time, but I worked as an AmeriCorps member under a creative nonprofit organization called Creating Pride. From there, they hired me on to be a production manager. I produced teacher workshops for probably about 5 or 6 years. The nonprofit organization, their focus was integrating arts into the curriculum. So whatever I've done, it's always been creative based, so that I'm not outside of what I love to do. For me, I always needs to be creating. Mm-hmm. So if I'm at McDonald's, it needs to look beautiful. Whatever it is, I've always worked in a field of creativity. Even now, I presently work part-time. I'm an arts administrator for Fayette County government. So I'm always in a position of creativity because that's what I live and I breathe. So I'm not going to be in a space where I'm not creating. Okay.
Yes. So we're gonna answer the question with your question, okay. And Nan's gonna tell us the same about that middle period. What is it that you focus on till you finally spoke to someone, and then what were the work that you did in between? Building to that point.
Can I talk about that first? I want to tell you some of my jobs. After I got out of college, first I worked in a hardware store as a clerk. Then I got a job I was still in university town. I got a job in the library, working and looking up things in the card catalog for somebody, and for 20 hours a week. Then later on, I was a nurse's aide several places, carried bedpans. I'm really good at being with the old ladies. I'm really nice. The ladies love me. They want to move in with me. Which is good because my mom turned out to be one of those recently. But let's see, hospitals, nursing homes. Then I did some pink collar work, where you answer telephones and maybe they drugged me screaming to use a computer back so long ago. And then I went to grad school, and when I got out, I was going to get another job. And when I was in grad school, they paid me to teach. I was lucky. And I went to state school, and it didn't cost much. And I was married then. And my husband went to medical school. That was when I was carrying the bedpans. And I worked at the dental school one time. Did a lot of the dental work was free at the dental school in Chapel Hill. Yeah. After grad school, he decided it was probably made more sense to go with his job rather than for me to look for a teaching job, which is probably just as good because there are not many college teaching jobs, and they're not tenure track is going. So I have taught off and on, but right now I'm pretty much a kept woman, and that's a real luxury. That's a luxury. It has its price, but it also means that I don't have to worry about selling my work, and. So what was it? That's the
so building up to the point when you started reaching out. What was that process like for you, and what should people look for when they start that?
Okay, I'm a little off track now, but you were talking about going back to school, and I think when I came here to Atlanta, I didn't know anybody. I knew everybody in my restaurant, and suddenly I don't know anybody. So I started taking classes. Now I didn't go to school in a school program, full time, but there are all kinds of classes. There are weekend workshops. There's this, that, and other, and it stretches you. You take something you don't know how to do. I took classes in clay for the first time. I took printmaking classes, but somehow that you get out, you meet people. It's not as big an investment as like going to full-time school, and you learn something new and you get stimulated. So that's a lot of what I did before I started an organization. Once I started the organization, I was not lonesome ever again. That's a little extreme.
What's your organization? What is your organization?
The Women's Caucus for Art of Georgia, and we're almost 15. And I have been president and treasurer and everything else, and some of these ladies here are in the group, and we mentor each other as young people. And I have plenty of people to talk to, but that's not. But that in itself, okay. But you still want to keep challenging yourself. You have to challenge yourself when you die. Yeah, you need to try something.
And if it's not school, and if you cannot make it back into the school, then you find a group. And there are many groups now everywhere.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. There's so many in Atlanta. There are ones that are focused around your specific medium. I mean, I don't know more about the visual arts, but there's the printmakers, there's the Collage Society, there are several photography groups. You might. If this appeals to you at all, you might need to try several before you feel one where you feel like it's right for you. You're not. There are groups that I would not fit in with at all. But I've also been in sculpture groups because I'm a sculptor, and from that I learned a lot about craftsmanship. They didn't teach me in undergraduate. You just learn from other people, other artists. Yes, Anita. If you,
yes, sure.
I know, Ann. I was just wondering, when did you decide to go from 2D to 3D and why?
Oh, okay. I always thought I wanted to be a painter, but I wanted to paint figurative, anecdotal things, as my teachers call anecdotal, and they told me I couldn't do that. This was in the late 60s. And then, I got married, I had a baby, blah, blah, and I started taking a night class in San Francisco. And I took a sculpture class, and, we had an assignment to make a sculpture out of our environment, something in our environment. But you couldn't use driftwood or beer cans. All right. So I'm a young mother, I just had a baby. And this was back in the days before they had Pampers. So I took these cloth diapers and I sewed me a lady out of them, and she had her knees bent and she was splayed open, and from her internal organs were coming rattles and all this baby paraphernalia. When you have you got all this stuff when you have a baby, and that was like when I finally realized I wanted to work in 3 dimensions. And when I realized I was a feminist artist, and I was more happy, I needed to make art that came out of my experience. And it was a time when a lot of other women throughout the country and the world were coming to the same thing. So it was that diaper lady who did it.
No, so go ahead, Hez. Tell us about what were the steps and to get into to find a group that was for you.
Yeah, I think that really just building off of what both of these artists have said, I think it's really important to find something that is your edge, but try to strike a balance between exciting and terrifying. Be real about what you like and how you are, and whatever it is, don't feel bad about it. If it's 15 shows of just going and showing up, and then feeling comfortable, that's great, you did it. If it's the first show, great, you did it. It's really shameless being an artist. It's really shameless caring about what you care about. And that means that you work with yourself Like, I work with